Okay, Fernando.
Right, Fernando Mendez, chiropractor, Brooklyn. Before the meeting, Brian was talking about coaching sports, and I was out in Pennsylvania. My kids are playing recreational league soccer, co-ed, rec soccer, and I have a bit of a tough time with it. Sometimes I don't even go, and I realized I grew up playing sports competitively, not recreationally, and that was in my head. And I saw a video from my high school team. It was after I graduated, but it was the same scenario I had lived. It was a championship game, and one team starts doing a war dance, or my team starts doing a chant, and everybody's yelling and screaming, and it's a wild scene. And I go, that's it. I thought it was actually a video of me. I thought it was from the time we had played, but it was 4 years later. I got so emotional. I thought I was going to see myself in this video, but it was almost the same thing. It was the same two teams, the same setup before the game. I think about that just because you forget about some stuff. I forget about all that training I did back then, and now I look at it and I see how it served me and how it hasn't served me. It was like a strict discipline, and I know I just assume people have that, and I've learned that some people don't. People don't like to be told what, that rigidity really scares a lot of people. So I've backed off of that way. I see that's not a way to, handle people. But I definitely, personally, those seeds were planted in like an old-fashioned way. And I was watching a movie and they were talking about some people still remember the old ways. And those were definitely some of the old ways of doing things. And just seeing that video brought it forward. And I'm thankful for it, for what I have to do in chiropractic. I've been talking about, I've been going through the Bible, and one of the things I just went through was like these two passages back to back. One was saying how to be a leader or to be great, you have to serve people and assume even the lowliest roles. And I think all that training and stuff was like showing us how to just, what the next quote that followed up was the lady who gave the money, it was all the money she gave, and automatically you see the connection. It's not about giving all your money, but about giving everything you have. And all that training was the same thing. When you were doing something, it was just trying to bring the best out of you. And that's all I have to share.
Anyone like to ask Fernando anything?
Nancy has a question.
Nancy.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. Hi. You mentioned the concept of competition, and I was wondering if you have any thoughts about competition and chiropractic.
The only thing I could think the healthy part is, a lot of, when I first got into it, I was like, how do you even do this? And then you look and you go, oh, everybody, like all these people are doing, I could do this, right? So you get a little competitive, like you need it. It does make you push you forward. That's the only competitiveness I see, otherwise, it's so, I don't know, like personally between chiropractors, it's so individual that you realize quickly, like, he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, and that's okay.
Anyone else like to ask Fernando anything? Anyone?
With the rugby and the whole ritual before the game, did that ever lead to any fights? Because
they say rugby's like a barbarian sport played by gentlemen. So it was very self-controlled. If even the emotional parts, if somebody got very emotional, then things would be reciprocated on, everything evened out. And I think a lot of sports, they've had that, where people do cross lines and then people bring them back into line. And everything can go forward in the game, it's still a game.
Anyone else want to ask Fernando anything? Anyone? Phil?
Do you think competition is good?
You get the good out. You can take the good out of it. I know that.
Go ahead, Everson.
But because I know it can be, I was so competitive. There's a famous Magic Johnson, a famous basketball player. He'd be running up and down the court smiling, and every time I played, I wasn't smiling. It was very serious. And then afterwards, I enjoyed the victories. But during it was very serious, and yeah.
Go ahead.
Is recreational sports a bad thing?
Yes. No, it's like a whole different experience. It's a different take on things.
Thank you. Very good. The floor is open. Whoever would like to come up.
Brian,
Yes.
could you just give a quick synopsis of what Pat said, because unfortunately my power went out.
Oh, it was a video of, it's called Freedom. And he was saying about how freedom is a precious thing. And then he was saying how they say they want to make us more secure, to make us feel more secure, but they really just are taking your rights away. And they're protecting you from what? He said it's like the mob, they're protecting you from them. It's like, it's like protection money. I won't burn your house down if you pay me, the money every month. And then at the end he said, we're gonna have peace on earth, but not through guns, not through bombs, and not through war. So chiropractic is about having peace on earth. That's pretty much the synopsis.
Thank you.
All right, the floor is open. Whoever would like to come up. By the way, that's a new term I never heard, recreational sports. So I'm learning new things every day. So the floor is open. Whoever would like to come up. Anyone? Anyone in the Zoom world can speak. Anyone? Someone's got to have something to say.
Good evening, everybody. Bob Watton, Brooklyn, Astoria.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. So one of the things in my experience when I was doing all kinds of things to try and get healthier and be healthier, one of the things I would notice is that I would attract more of this to bring me back to center.
Can you just read the words you wrote for the people on Zoom?
We have, to the left we have health, and to the right we have disease. So whenever I would try and become as healthy as possible, whether it was exercise, eating, whatever I was doing, like a new diet fad or whatever, I would attract more of this, and then that would be bringing me back to the center here. And so I like to think of it more as we say in chiropractic, normal function. So when we have normal function, we will have normal structure, and when we have normal structure, we'll have normal function. And so I'm more focused on that, and also vitality. So that's where I like to think is more in the center, and not try to be to one extreme or the other, or to try to avoid one extreme and try to go for this other extreme, because they're basically like a coin. It's the two sides of the same coin. And how much time do I have?
You got a minute and a half.
And lately I've been venturing into seeing the sunrise and watching the sunset as much as possible. And unfortunately this meeting started earlier, so I did not get to see the sunset tonight. But I've been doing that based on with circadian rhythms of the body. I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Just realizing, being in the artificial light most of the day, so on and so forth, like that is something I'm becoming just more conscious of, and wanting to change my habits towards that, and getting more sunlight. That's it.
All right. Anyone want to ask Bob anything? Anyone? Anyone?
You going for the is there an opposite of the vitality that's gonna mess you up, or can you just be vital?
I would think the opposite of vitality is death, I think. I would think, right? The other, I don't know, what's the opposite of vitality is no energy, I guess, right? I don't know, it's a good question though, I like that.
You want to ask Bob
Maybe
anything?
just stick with normal function.
Bob, what about, what changes have you noticed since you've been seeing the sun rise and the sun set in you?
I seem to sense that I'm more in tune. And then since I'm prioritizing that, a lot of other stuff is falling at the wayside, like not watching as much television. I still watch TV and stuff, but those kind of changes. And also, I think I'm sleeping better when I do get into that rhythm. So yeah, those are some of the changes.
Okay, anyone else like to ask Bob anything? Anyone? One more time, anyone? All right, Bob, excellent, Brad.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, you write that off, yeah? All right, whoever else wants to come up, just come on up, raise your hand. If you write something, just say the words so the people on Zoom know what it is, like Bob did. Okay, folks, so whoever would like to come up, come on up. Bill. Bill Bracco.
It's funny that Bob mentioned about sunset. Some of the best sunsets I ever remember was I was working in Brooklyn on on 2nd Avenue, 1st Avenue on container ships. I was a lasher, so at the end of the night I would climb up the top of these like 4 or 5 story high containers, and I could see out over Staten Island, and the sun would be setting, and I would be doing my job and lashing all this cargo, these containers up. But it was when I was done, I would look out and the sun would be setting. It was a very, very peaceful time in my life. But that's not what I want to talk about. Tonight I wanted to talk about this is when we had the meetings in Brooklyn, there was a chiropractor named Stanley Albert, Dr. Stanley Albert. And Stanley used to say something like this. He said that when he adjusts someone, the whole world gets adjusted. And I should have really stopped and asked him those questions about that, because I didn't quite understand it, but I think the more I think about it, I start to get it now. So I know Brian talks about how the body's changing and the heart is going to move from the left into the center, and so on and so forth. I don't look at it like that. To me, it's nice, but it's not really what I think about. Okay, so what I was thinking about was that when we adjust someone, right, that person has God inside of them. You want to call it the spirit, and you can call it God, whatever you like. And that God is inside of them, so that when we adjust them, we actually assist that God within them to come out more. You know, that may not make sense to you, but we're filled up with so much debris and junk inside of us that sometimes that, just can't express itself the way we want. So with each adjustment, the more love gets to flow from that person, because God is love, right? And it flows outward, and people begin to feel it and sense it and recognize it when they're in your presence or you're in their presence. So each person that we adjust, that love flows out, and the more people that happens to, the heart goes from the left to the center, whatever you want to say. But the more people that we take care of, the more love begins to flow from inside of each person and flows outwardly. And and people will begin to recognize that and sense that. And when that happens, the world is changing. Everyone's getting adjusted, even though they're not physically getting adjusted. Because they want to have that too. They want to be that as well.
All right. Anyone like to ask Phil Rocco anything? Anyone? Yeah, over here. Anyone? Evenson.
Do you believe that we're 6 degrees apart, like they say, 6 degrees of separation?
Anyone else like to ask Phil anything? Anyone? One more time. Phil, can you explain, what was that job called again?
Oh, I was a lasher.
What is that?
Well, you ever see when they put cargo,
Yeah.
container ships?
Uh-huh.
Well, those container ships go up high,
Yeah.
and they put these bolts in them to, like, you know, in the corners
Yeah.
to hold them. But still, if there's a rough seas,
Yeah.
the ship goes left, goes right, and cargo could fall off. So you go up there with, I guess, with turnbuckles and, you know, metal, you know, wires and ropes, metal rope, whatever you want to call it. And we would go across like this and come back this way and go that way and then tighten it up so that the ship was in storm and would still stay on.
All right. Anyone else like to ask Phil anything? Bob Weiner.
Do you see any connection from your experience doing that helped you with chiropractic in any way? Or
I was working with the Brooklyn longshoremen. Let me think about that. around 6, 7 o'clock at night, they would come. Everybody would go, slow down. I said, what are you talking about? Slow down. If you work to 7:15, you get paid to 9. If you work to 9:15, you get paid to 11. but I understand what you're saying. As far as that. You know what? It kind of makes you look at life, you know, and like you said, stop worrying about what's on TV and so on and so forth. It kind of brings you back more into to just being here right now and the awesomeness of what we have, this earth, you know, and what God created.
All right. Anyone else for Phil? Anyone?
Yeah, I have.
Nancy Brown.
Yeah, you know, it's been said that God is so vast and so infinite, we can't even hold it. And I know that when I get adjusted, there's a point where I don't want to get off the table. I'm just there. I'm wondering if it's like a moment where infinity kind of stops, God's infinity kind of stops. And that's what we experience. I'm just thinking about that as you said it, because I never could wrap words around it, but there's something like, it's like, oh, and then can't move, you know, just can't. And then, okay, snap to it, somebody else has to come in, you know.
Yeah, that's another way of putting it. I like that, you know. But there's some things that words just can't describe.
All right, Phil. Thank you very much. Excellent. The floor is open. Whoever else to come up. Do you want to say anything, Miss Sarah? All right. This young man over here. Anyone on Zoom? Phil Chimay.
Hello, good evening. Phil Chimay in Kings Park, New York. This weekend has been a very eventful one so far. It's not even over. Friday night, I actually officiated my very first memorial service for my cousin's husband. So to be my cousin passed away, and she asked me to say a blessing. And it was my very first official act as a minister. I always thought it was going to be a marriage ceremony or something like this, but it wound up being a memorial. But having said that, just today, I was invited to go to the Brahma Kumaris. They are a sect of Hinduism, and they're more, how would you say, more focused in on the being of the human. The being. The human is just the aspect that we all see, but the being is what lives inside every human. And it was interesting that they had invited all healthcare professionals. There were over 30 people there, and you know how shy and reserved I am. And I went around and asked people what they did. And I would say out of the 30 people, I was the only chiropractor. I would say about 25 were medical doctors, and the rest were either physical therapists or social workers. And the theme of the seminar was self-care, that the healthcare providers have to also take care of themselves. But what's interesting, the women that were running the seminar, the Brahma Kumaris, they too were medical doctors. And so the first question they asked the doctors were, how do you feel after they work? And speaking throughout answers. I'm throwing out joyous, healthy, vibrant. And one doctor said, okay, now let's get real. And he said, disgruntled, angry, frustrated, rubbed out. The medical doctor, they all agreed with this person. And I just kept quiet, and they just kept going in the negative realm of how they felt after the day's practice. I do not have that experience. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't. And it was just very interesting that I was listening to these people, how they are languishing in misery. You know, we want to demonize, well, I shouldn't say we. I used to demonize them. How could they do this to people? And yet, here they are. They're in their own personal hells, turmoil, constantly. So, the Brahma Kumaris gave us an exercise to do, to take care of ourselves. And the very first thing they said, they drew a picture. I wish I was there to draw you a picture. But if you can picture a being of light, they drew like a stick figure, and then surround that stick figure with light. They say, you are complete, you're whole. And then you're born. And then they drew a little smaller stick figure, and that's you when you were a child. And you have nothing. You feel empty and afraid. And then, as you go through life, all these images come in from society, your parents, obviously, schools, whatever. And they define you, they tell you what you are. But nobody ever looks back to that whole being that you were, this being of life, complete and whole into yourself. And the model that all you doctors, she said, all you doctors, come from this model that you're born and you die. And all this input is going to die with you. And she said, that's scary. But if you come from this other model, that you came from this being of light that decided to incarnate in this flesh temporarily, and you can bring yourself back to that perspective. And she said that you take these vitamins before you see your patients. And the first vitamin A was be present. Be present. Take a moment to pause. Be present and remember who you are. You are that light being, and also remember that patient is a light being, seeking help from you to go back to their origin. But if you have no idea where you came from, how in God's name can you even afford them that wisdom? Which made a lot of sense to me. But as a chiropractor, I did go talk to the host afterwards. I said, that was excellent, very good, thank you. But I want you to know, we as chiropractors work with that light being to restore its function in this corporal existence. She said, really? I always thought you guys just straightened out spines. I said, I know. That's what a lot of people think, that we've been relegated to. But no, we work with that light being in each person, and this is why people get well, because we restore that connection to that primordial being. And I found it fascinating, and I actually felt compassion for the medical people, how stressed they are because of what they have to go through every day. So I guess I had to hear all this to be a little more compassionate.
Anyone like to ask Phil Shimei anything? Anyone? Bob?
So Phil, after we leave the flesh, where does all the knowledge that we have and experiences and all that, where does it go?
That's a very good question. I never got around to asking them what they believe. They believe that, obviously, they call it a soul. I call it a spirit. But they believe that the soul is eternal and it carries all those experiences with it. As an individual soul, even though in the greater consciousness of the oneness, you're still like, there's 100 trillion cells in your body. Each cell right now is not aware of itself. It functions, hopefully, as one unit to keep you alive, right? We don't have, if you have rogue cells, we call that cancer. They ran them up. But all these cells now, they're liking it to that you're the individual soul in this body of oneness, and you carried all those experiences with you to that oneness, okay? So that when you decide to reincarnate, you do take those experiences. You might not be aware of them when you come back in the new body, but you do bring them back. This is why some people carry phobias from previous lifetimes. That's my understanding of it, because they understand that we have to clean up this karmic debt that we put on ourselves. So, according to them and my understanding, you carry it back to the oneness and it's held there until you bring them back yourself. What you experience, you bring back.
Anyone else like to ask Phil Shimei anything? Bill Rocco.
Phil, do you think that the medical doctors feel that way because, like for example, when we adjust a patient first thing in the morning, when we go in the morning, we say, how can I turn the light on and make this person's light shine brighter? Where a medical doctor says, I know there's a disease process growing inside this person somewhere and I gotta find it. So you think that's because they become that? Because that's all they think about?
Very good insight, Phil, very good.
Yeah.
That's exactly what she was alluding to. That they're coming from the other model, that you're born, and then you have all these experiences and you die. And that's what you're absolutely right, Phil. So they wake up thinking in that model, that how am I going to serve these people when they're ill and everything else? And obviously that leads to burnout. They don't think like you and me and most other chiropractors that, hey, we come from from this light being. And so we're already refreshed, we're ready to go, and we're looking at the individual not as a suffering person, but a light being that just needs a little assistance to get back to their original root. So that makes a world of difference, and that's what she said. The medical doctor was a Brahma Kumari. She says you must wake up 10 minutes earlier every morning and put your intention on reconnecting with your light being first. Be present with your light being inside of you, and then go assist your patients, and you'll see a world of difference. You're not going to be as burnt out.
All right, we'll end on that. Thank you, Phil. Anyone else want to speak? We have everyone here has spoken, so either Nancy, would you want to say anything? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of doing a lot of work right now, so spiritual work, so just going to be brief. To corroborate with what you said, Phil, I had an experience, not to belabor things, but I had a very concerning issue with my neck. doctors told me, medical doctor told me that I was telling Brian about it, that I was a candidate for paralysis. And so this took me out for about 2 hours, maybe 3. And then I got angry, like how dare he say that to me, she. And anyway, long story short, you know, I'm a chiropractic patient. I work with healers. I do a lot of spiritual work. And so I was just fine. My chiropractor, Christina, was wonderful. Brian went crazy. He said that person shouldn't be even a doctor to be talking that way to a patient. And I spoke to another chiropractor that you all know, I think, Frank Gilbert, and it was the same story, you know, like how dare they, whatever. So I said, okay, I'm doing what I need to do and what I know to do, and I know who I am, and I know what this is about, what's going on. But I did go and visit this, quote, spine doctor. There's a phenomenon here called a spine doctor in Florida. You know, there's a lot of people that do Medicare mills in Florida, including chiropractors. And like Brian said, what did you say to me? Like I got another PhD in seeing what the medical profession is, and I really have, unfortunately, learned what we are countering against. But this spine doctors, I just couldn't believe it. It's a Medicare mill. They're just racking up money. You know, they had to do an extra X-ray. I said, I don't need it. You have an MRI. What are you talking about? You know. So he goes, well, you don't need surgery. I said, yeah, I'm aware of that. You know, it's like, what have you got for me? You know. So he says, well, I'm going to give you pain medication, and if you need to speak with a pain doctor, we have 5 pain doctors working in this office. It's like a conglomerate there of all of this. I said, well, you know something, I'm not in pain, I don't need pain medication, and I have a different way of viewing pain than you do. So he just stopped in his tracks, and he said, well, what is that? So I told him, I said, my experience is that pain is something that is drawing my attention to something in the body that God has put there for me to pay attention to and to process and to understand what is actually going on many, many levels. So he goes, oh. So I said, I recognize that's not the medical model. And honestly, I don't know where I got the chutzpah to say all this, but I did it very sweetly. And I don't know how I got away with it. So I said, well, do you want me to come and see you again? I said, it takes 6 weeks to get an appointment with you. Seriously, I mean, it takes 6 weeks to get an appointment with a spine doctor. And what they want to do to you is an ablation, which deadens your nerves. They want to put metal things in your spine. They have a whole menu of, quote, services that they offer. It was very enlightening to me. So he says, well, you could come back in 6 months if you want, make an appointment, but you don't need surgery, you're fine, you know. I said, okay, fine, thank you very much. P.S. Even after I told him, he called in the prescription for the pain medicine to my pharmacy. The pharmacy calls me, this is a racket, boy. The pharmacy calls me and says, you have medication ready that the doctor ordered. I said, no, I don't. She says, oh yeah, you need to come get it and pay for it because the doctor ordered it. I said, you'll have to put it back on the shelf because I don't need it, thank you very much. But I just thought, wow, what an education, this is a racket. And it's worse than a Medicare mill. It's a paradigm of death. It's a paradigm of not healing. I'm glad I saw it. You know, it's just unbelievable. So different than, you know, what I know is real and true. Anyway, I talk too much. Thank you.
Anyone want to ask Nancy anything? Even soon.
I don't want to ask, I just want to let her know that I experienced the same thing a couple of years ago, where I
Never tell
I
us.
told you this time.
No, I'm not. Talk louder, talk so she can hear you.
yeah,
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
um,
Who's talking?
Even's in the speaking.
Oh,
He's right here.
yeah, I experienced something similar to you, pretty much exactly what you said. I was told that they wanted to burn my nerves in my back,
That's it, the
and
ablation.
I asked them, well, aren't the nerves the sensors that indicate when things are wrong? If you burn that out, how do I know how much harm I'm doing to my body thereafter? And I was told that, well, they'll grow back, and I told her I didn't trust it. Nonetheless, I got the same phone call from the pharmacy telling me that they had submitted the order in, but I never picked it up. But the doctors know if you don't fill that prescription. Because on the next visit they were telling me that, and that was my last experience with like the pain expert.
Anyone like to ask Nancy anything?
Nancy, you were saying when they said you're a candidate for paralysis? What,
Yeah.
what was that? That was based on the MRI?
Yeah, the
And what-
report of the MRI that used the word severe in certain spots. So
Severe.
that's word severe triggered in the doctor's brain paralysis.
Severe what?
Probably don't remember.
Severe in what they said my diagnosis
You
was.
don't remember?
What are like stenosis, you know, all that stuff.
It was, you know, the usual stenosis, scoliosis, arthritis, whatever, discs, whatever.
Anyone else want to ask Nancy anything?
Can I give a point of information?
Go ahead, last one.
Nancy, when I was in chiropractic college, the president of the college used to talk about your reason for being and your purpose. And I wonder, some people were there with a purpose to help people, and some people were there with a purpose to make money.
Right.
So you gotta be careful. when you-
You're 100% right. This is all being exposed now. This is what Pasquale talked about, and you know, Phil, you experienced it with those doctors there. The medical profession, it can't sustain itself this way. It's not going to. It's just all falling apart now. So that's what's happening.
All right, let's clap for Miss Nancy Brown. All right, so that's it. So I put something together. So I stepped into the role tonight to do this. So Brian Patrick Corrigan, chiropractor, Jersey City, New Jersey. I do hear a lot of people talking about, from all sorts of different places, talking about frequency and pulses and tones. And I'll give a quote from Pasquale. He says, "Love conquers all." He goes, "I disagree." He goes, "It's only the labor that conquers this. When you have the labor that conquers the stumbling blocks that prevent us from getting to love. Once you get rid of those obstacles, then you have love, and there's nothing else to conquer." So, to me, chiropractic is about the stillness, being still. And it's like chiropractics help us jump out of space and time, and we can sense that stillness. And when we serve someone, it's like they jump out of space and time, they can sense that stillness, and they come back in, that debris that's inside, those obstacles. An obstacle to me is anything that takes us away from God. So whatever lives inside of us, whether it's anger, pain, this or that comes out of us, and it physically comes out of us, and it makes us shake, and it makes us have that tone as that debris leaves us. But in the end, chiropractic is about us being still. And I'm going to say one more thing, then I'm going to tell a story to illustrate something. So, people are talking about the planets and the stars and all that stuff right now. And I really don't understand any of it, but I just know there's stuff going on. But here's what I learned from Pasquale. He's like, those things are only happening because what's going on inside of us. We're changing inside of us, and that's why you're hearing all these people talking about how, this particular planet's here, and this is there, and that moon, because we're changing inside. And that's what chiropractic does. So I have a story which popped into my head earlier today. Pasquale passed away. I should say that real quick. Pasquale says he's not going to die or pass away. He says he's going to be like Enoch. If you go to Enoch in the Bible, Genesis 5, it says how so and so lived this amount of years and died. Everyone died. But with Enoch, all it said was, and Enoch was not, for God took him. It never said he died. So Pasquale says. So on March 1st, 2010, Pasquale God just took him. And now, so that was a Monday, so March 1st. So Saturday, March 6th, we had his memorial service in the basement of his house. And it was packed. I mean, it was packed. Many of us here who were at this meeting were there. And I ran it. I ran the memorial service. And I remember it was 3 hours, starting from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I just remember, I just felt really good. I felt like I just had this super energy to do all this. And then, as soon as it was over, I was like, most people just bolted and left. And then, so if you're standing in the front of Pasquale where he had the chalkboard behind him, then if you went off to your right, that took you into a hallway, and that you either go up, it took you into the hallway, go to the kitchen or go upstairs. But in between the chalkboard and the hallway, there was a post in his house, like a big beam to hold up the house. And I remember when it was over, I felt great. Everyone was leaving. I walked, and as soon as I got past that post, I felt like I was just drained. I had energy. I'm like, oh my God, I have to just go lie down somewhere. So I went under the hallway. Remember, Pasquale had those spiral staircases. And the reason why he had that built, he cut a hole in the wall, one of the adjusting rooms. Hole in the floor with the spiral stair to go into the basement, walk back up through his house so that he could eat dinner, and then he'd sneak back down so he could see. He said, if I went out there, they would never let me leave. So I went up those steps, and I was just drained, and I just hid off to the side somewhere. And I just remember, I'm like, what is going on? It's like this voice said to me, it's like, while you were doing that meeting, we were holding you up completely, like us, the spiritual friends. We completely held you. And then when it was over, we took that away and let you realize what it's like to have that. And it's like, if you wanted to get that stillness you had back while you were running that service, you're going to have to earn it. And that's what was told to me. That's why I said, well, what do I mean by earn it? Just, the only word that I can come up with is surrender. I always tell them, I surrender to God, God takes over my schedule. And that took me years to really, truly live that. And to me, this is what chiropractic really is about. I don't think about health because health is fleeting, and why someone has a health issue or not could be like what Phil was saying, Shemay was saying, it's something they took into this life with them, and they have to work through it. I don't know, but I just know is chiropractic helps us be still. When you have that stillness, you're able to see what it is you really need to do. And when people really see what they really need to do that benefits them, that's where you're going to have the peace inside of them. and you're gonna see all these wars go away, and all this stuff go away because it's not inside of us. And I'll end on this. Pasquale said, chiropractic came here for the salvation of mankind, men and women. So I'll just end on that. Anyone want to ask me anything? Phil Chimay?
Did I hear you right when you said that Pat said love conquers all, but it's not the love, it's the labor, removing the blocks to love?
Yeah, it removes the stumbling blocks. I said obstacle. I should have said stumbling
All
blocks.
Right, now what type of labor does one do to get rid of those stumbling blocks?
I can just speak for myself. It was to surrender. Because I was stubborn. I thought I could break through things and push, work 7 days a week, work hard. Because one of the things Pasquale told me, Phil, was you don't have to do what I did. And Stanley Alpert called me up. He didn't tell me he was ill, but it turned out to be not that long before he passed away. And he told me, he's like, Brian, us old timers, we work 7 days a week because that's just the way it was. But it did affect their personal lives. And Sura went to some event in Belize with this lovely woman named Rosita, and she was telling the story how hard she worked and all the books she studied. And some lady goes, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to read all these same books you didn't know. And then she said to the lady, but there's a price to pay for that. And then he goes, what do you mean? She's like, her daughter, who's in her 40s, still resents her to this day because she wasn't there. Because she was off running around doing these things. I just wanted to get that in, Phil. But for me, it's really about what Phil was just saying. The biggest stumbling block for me was I just thought I could plow through things. And when I surrendered, what that meant to me was I'm just giving myself back over to love. I'm allowing that love for me to be still and to sense it and to live it. And to live those words about. Because to me there's only one thing. I don't like to say unconditional love because now you're putting something in front of love. Just make it love. So for me, the word surrender is what removes the stumbling blocks. Anyone else want to ask me anything?
Nancy has.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, you talked about the experience of the stillness. Has that, what you're calling the stillness, has that changed for you over time? I don't know if you can even.
No, it made me aware that it exists. It made me aware that I can be a part of it. And just serving people, it makes me realize I do that every single time I'm serving someone. Because he said that you're serving someone, then after I'm done, I'm like, after the person, okay, they get up and go on their way. It was like that's where I was that whole time in that stillness. It made me aware of it. It made me aware of just how much I'm really in that stillness now because I think about it. I guess the best way I say it made me aware of it. And I do think about it when I show up to serve people. So it's a constant thing in my life. Anyone else want to ask me? Phil Chimay.
Yeah, Brian, thank you for that insight, but let me ask you a question. A major stumbling block for people, if not all people, is self-love. In other words, they don't love themselves.
Correct.
So, by loving yourself, does that not conquer all the stumbling blocks?
Yes, it certainly, to me, I look at it as three things. In order to do anything, I have to love myself.
Okay.
Right.
Which allows me to love others. But for me, the big thing was for me, Phil, was to allow others to love me.
Right.
And I didn't do that. And it took Pasquale to scream at me once. He screamed at me. He goes, "Let us love you. We love you. Just let us love you." And that was like a lightning bolt that hit me. And to me, it was like the perfect example was someone who you know, Elita. I was fortunate enough that she let me go to the office while she served people. And I think it's powerful when you allow people to love you, when you will just allow that. It's so powerful, and I saw her do it, and it does help that other person as well. But I think it helps us because you just let people be who they are without trying to, I have to change them, I have to give them a lecture, I gotta give them a pep talk. I'm gonna do any of those things. I don't wanna be your coach. I want to coach, go play softball, I tell people. I'm not the guy, because I just say to people, by allowing that person to love me, it's like I'm just taking in that one thing of love, and I don't have to worry about anything. I mean, I don't have to be focused on trying to fix them. And by doing that, they feel rewarded, because now they're like, this person is giving me a gift, and I'm accepting it. Because a lot of people are so used to being denied and put down and insulted and just hurt. And they don't know how to get out of that situation. So just by, like I said, love myself, but others love them, but love me, it just creates a really powerful thing. Anyone else? Want to ask?
Brian,
Go ahead.
can I have a follow-up, please?
Go ahead.
Could you possibly give, because I'm very confused.
Sure.
Could you possibly give me an example how you personally did not allow others to love you? In other words, if somebody said, Ryan, I love you, what did you do? Get away from me? Something like this?
No, I was physically recoiled.
Oh.
Like physically, I said, what are you saying this to me for?
Thank you.
I don't know why I was like that, Bill. I don't have that. I don't know the why, but I was. And it took Pasquale to point it out to me.
Did that include your parents if they said I love you?
No,
No.
no. Outside of
Okay.
that, I didn't have them even running up to me telling me they love me. By the way. So.
How long did it take you to surrender? How hard and how did you know you surrendered?
You know,
Could you repeat the question, please?
just say it louder.
How long did it take you to surrender? How hard was it? And how did you know when you have surrendered?
You know, I was certainly talking a good game for years, but I realize now, looking back, I didn't do it. I really, but at least I was talking about it. I don't know how many years. I couldn't tell you. Probably 10. And that was it.
Bye.
As far as it wasn't hard, yeah, for me it was,
Bye, sir.
but for someone else it might be one day.
Right.
Anyone else want to ask me anything?
Are you still surrendering or are you completely surrendered?
I think about it every day. Every day, that's in my thoughts about surrendering, because it just helps me focus on it. But the other thing is, it helps me be calm, because, you know, living in Jersey City, I gotta do a lot of crazy stuff. Because, you know, you're gonna ask Stevenson, you walk around some of these avenues, you got all sorts of people coming at you. They want money, or they want this, or there's some, you know, you got a bunch of hustlers. So now I just walk down the street, for some reason, they just don't talk to me. They leave me alone. I don't yell at them, I don't threaten anyone, I don't say anything. And I realized that's because I don't know why, but they just don't want to come up to me. And it's an observation I have. Anyone else want to ask me anything?
Yes.
Nancy Brown.
Yep. The experience of love and stillness that you're experiencing, that we all experience, is it possible that there's a bigger, there's more than we're experiencing now, that we don't even see or feel right now?
Oh yeah.
That there's something bigger that is so big that
It's overwhelming.
we're growing into.
Yes,
Is
I mean,
there a possibility for you?
you know what Phil Chimay was asking me, I realized, Phil, I guess, now that I think about it, with people about allowing them, it really was overwhelming for me, I guess, for some reason. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know why that is. But I noticed that with people, they get overwhelmed just by kindness, and like there's a channel I like to watch called Soft White Underbelly. He interviews all types of people, but he knew a lot of street people, or people who were drug addicts. And this one woman had a horrible childhood, abused in every way possible by her father. She became a drug addict. For years, she got off the drugs, met a very nice man, had a really nice life, and then after dating this guy for a few years, she broke up with him, and they asked her why. She said because she felt she was unlovable. She didn't think that was something that she could even have in her life. And I see that with a lot of people that I just meet in my life. And then one of the things that as a chiropractor, some of those people, after a while I get to know them, they tell me they just like coming here because besides from making them feel good, they feel at peace, and they tell me it's nice to know someone's on their side. They view me as someone who's on their side, which I am. And but that all comes from stillness. But it is something, it's so enormous, there's no words for it. You can't describe its sensation, but it's here. And whether I can talk about it or I don't have the words for it, but I'm watching more and more people that come in here, because this is what I'm about, that come in here, that's really what they're looking for. And whether they come back or not, that's not up to me, but I can sense it. I just sense that people are really being more aware, I say, of God inside themselves.
Very good.
Anyone else? Anyone? Does anyone have? Phil, is your hand up, or you're holding your headphone?
I'm holding
All
the
right,
headphone.
anyone else? We'll end on that then, folks. Gracias.
Very good, Brian. Great meeting.
Oigo,